Good day, sir. So, the first topic of my presentation comes from Chapter 2 of our lesson, and this talks about performance assessment. So, what is performance assessment? Performance assessments engage students in activities and tasks that require application of knowledge and skills through creation of a presentation or product. Performance is shorthand for performance-based or performance and product. It can be simple or complex. For example, keyboarding skills or creating a remote-controlled machine. So, performance assessment varies according to complexity, and it gauges students' in-depth knowledge and understanding of a particular subject matter or topic, and gives the assessor a glimpse as well of a learner's unique abilities and capabilities in general. Moving on to the next slide. Alternative assessment and authentic assessment cannot be used synonymously with performance assessment. Alternative assessment is any method that differs from conventional paper and pencil tests. Authentic assessment involves direct examination of a student's ability to use knowledge to perform a real-life task. What constitutes authentic assessment varies. So this basically indicates that performance assessment is different from alternative assessment and authentic assessment. In my opinion, it's much more technical in nature compared to alternative assessment and can be applied to a much broader scope compared to authentic assessment. Moving on to the next slide. So this figure shows the characteristics of performance assessments. So in performance assessment, students explain, justify, and defend. Students use their reasoning skills. Performance assessment uses engaging ideas of importance and substance. It typically has no single correct answer. It requires sustained work. It uses clear criteria and rubrics for scoring. And within it, students perform, create, construct, produce, or do something. Next slide. Authentic assessment must be a task that is realistic or outside the classroom. It can be performance-based or formative. It typically is cognitively complex, requires defense of an answer or product, includes collaboration with others, has known scoring criteria, uses multiple indicators for scoring, has a mastery, and criterion reference orientation. Moving on to the next slide. So, here are benefits to using performance assessments. Learning occurs while students complete the assessment. Teachers interact with students as they engage in the task. This is important as feedback is a great tool which facilitates learning as well. Prepare students for thinking and reasoning outside of school. Students learn that often no single answer is correct, and students value the task. So performance assessment, since it engages the complete attention of a particular student, it encourages them to make use of their abilities and capabilities in performing their task as well. And the fact that no single answer is correct allows students to use their creativity and artistry toward the performance. And students often value their task in doing performance assessment, and this type of motivation is important, especially in today's learning scenario. Moving on to the next slide. Here are strengths of performance assessment. So performance assessments, or PA, are better suited to measure complex thinking targets than SR items or selected response items, or simple CR items or constructed response items. Instruction is integrated with assessment. Students are more engaged in active learning. Skills are assessed directly. There are more opportunities to observe the process students use to arrive at responses, and students have an opportunity to demonstrate their learning in a different way. So performance assessments, of course, since it uses unique faculties within a student's ability. It's better suited, of course, to measure complex thinking than structured response items or simple CR items. Moving on to the next slide. So students can use the multiple specific criteria for judging success as they learn. Students learn to evaluate their own performance. Students can practice working effectively with others. It motivates educators to explore the purposes and processes of schooling. Learning goals, instructional practices, and standards are revisited. Use of classroom time may differ. Adequate resources need to be available for all. Next slide. On the other hand, here are limitations of performance assessment as well. So limitations lie in three areas. First is reliability. PA are subject to considerable measurement error. Major source of error is with scoring, inconsistent student performance. Second is sampling. Fewer samples of student proficiency are available. Next, generalization can be more limited, since of course performance assessments factor in the judgment of the assessor, so it can be problematic, or an issue may arise with regard to scoring. And student performance can also be inconsistent between performances, since of course different performances are made into play, as well as different lessons are also structured individually or differently. Next slide. So the third limitation is time. Time to construct tasks, to develop scoring criteria and rubrics, to administer the task, to observe students, and it can be difficult to interact in a timely manner, and can be difficult to estimate time needed for students. Of course, since performance assessments is much more complex in nature compared to the standard or normal assessment, it would be time consuming to construct tasks, to develop scoring in its administration, as well as in observing students and delivering feedback in a manner which in no way would disrupt the students' attention toward performing the task at hand. So as for the two examples, my first example is with regard to gymnastics presentation. So a teacher demonstrates a sample routine incorporating the principles of gymnastics, or an area in gymnastics, which is part of a particular lesson, and he allows the students to demonstrate these principles in play using their own creative routine to display what they have learned. The second one is in a similar manner, students can also demonstrate what they learned with regard to different planes of the body. Wherein in the lesson it was discussed and examples were also given, which would allow students to demonstrate their creativity and interpretation as well. So that ends my first presentation, and thank you.